Hello, my name is Lindsay Castleman, and I'm the director of the Counseling Center at Fellowship. And I'm really excited to be talking with you a little bit today about how to parent kiddos who aren't kiddos anymore. They're actually now adults. I mostly see adults and couples. And so I have heard from so many different clients things that they long for, things that they desire for from their parents who are even still alive today, still either in their life or not in their life, but just the relationship that they've desired to have with their parents as an adult. So today I'm going to talk with you a little bit more about how to parent your child who is now an adult. Now, each age and stage of parenting throughout your child's life looks different. You're not always needed in the same way. You know, when your kids were little, they needed you for basic life skills and needs. I mean, even to dress themselves. But as they grow, they don't need you more in those ways. They now need you more emotionally and even structurally. Then, once your kid launches and becomes an adult, guess what? They still need you. But again, it's not the same way. It continues to change. Now, what they need from you all along is that you are their safe haven, their secure base to always come back to. Research shows us that people who have secure attachment with their caregivers actually feel more comfortable exploring the world because they know that if they fail, if they make a risk in this world, which you got to do, and it doesn't pay off, they still have a place to come back to get comfort, care, encouragement, and challenge and support to go back out and take the risk again. But unfortunately, in a lot of relationships, that is not what we find in the dynamics between adult children and their parents. We can often find a lot of pain in these relationships. And here are the big places of pain that I have seen in my clients. Now, the first one is parents who do not pursue their adult kids. Now, I'm not saying enabling. I'm not saying that you are now all up in their life, right, for everything. But it's this actual pursuit of parents that are not reaching out. They're not asking their kids even just, how are you doing? Not how successful are you? How's your job? But how are they doing emotionally? They create their own life so much that they forget that their kids still need them. And so that's been a big place of pain of sitting and saying, my gosh, my parents aren't really that interested in my kids. They're not that interested in grandkids, right? And so that's a big place of pain that we've seen show up. The second big place of pain is parents who now feel like it's their turn to be taken care of. So they expect their adult kids to pursue them and take care of them. They impose their emotional needs to be needed or loved on their kids instead of creating relationships, friendships, their relationship with God that helps them be whole and not need these things from their child. Remember, your child is not responsible for your emotions. They are to be respectful towards you, but not responsible for your feelings because you're an adult. So you're responsible for your own feelings. And this one, guys, this one is so common where there can be this attitude of, hey, I have been giving my kids for 18 years. It's now their turn to give to me. But that's just not how it flows. When we flow with emotional care, it should go from parent to child. And then from that child, when they become parents, to their children. It's not supposed to be that we then turn and be responsible for our own parents' emotions. That's not the way that we flow. And that's a hard one. It is really a hard one. So I know that that can be difficult. The third one is we see parents who don't reflect on how they showed up as parents while the child was living with them. So they don't understand why their adult child doesn't want to be around them or invite them into their world. They just want to say, hey, I did the best I could, instead of actually slowing down and hearing the hurt that the child experienced while growing up in their care and then repairing. It doesn't matter if you didn't mean to hurt your kiddo or not, if you didn't mean to hurt your child emotionally or not. If they felt hurt, by you. That hurt needs to be understood and cared for. That's your responsibility. You move towards your child in repair, and you move towards your child in looking inward to say, man, I wasn't a perfect parent. I often tell people it's probably better to save for your kiddos' therapy than for their college, right? Because what we really want is we want for adults to be able to know their story, to own their story, and to be able to move into repair with those that they hurt, especially if it's their adult kiddos. Number 4, parents who have a hard time letting go. So these types of parents like to put themselves in the middle of their kids' relationships, in the middle of their friendships. They try to convince their kids to live close by. They've probably lived their entire life for their kids and neglected other relationships. They use a lot of language to try to make their kiddos feel bad that they're trying to create their own life apart from them. Some of that language can be, oh, you never call me. Um, that language can be, why don't you come visit me more? Or you're spending so much time with this person, with that person, you never spend any time with me, right? All of this kind of language, it doesn't feel good. It can feel a little bit more manipulative, right? And so the better thing to say is, I love you, I miss you, and I'm glad that you're building these relationships, because we need for our lives to be so fruitful that we're not sitting and saying, man, my life is based on how my kid feels about me, how close my kid wants me to be to them. These parents might offer financial gifts that end up not really being true gifts. They have strings attached. So you can kind of see how a lot of this can start to feel icky. And I'm not saying any of these parents are coming from a bad place at all. There's something happening in them that needs tending to as well, that might not have ever gotten care either. So there's no villains here. There's a reason. And when we look at our story, we can see why we show up that way, but we have to be aware. Now, there are many more categories, but these are the bigger ones that we see. So, practically, what can we do to show up in a healthy way that shows our kids that we are accessible, responsive, and emotionally engaged, which are the 3 hallmarks of a secure attachment? Number 1, remember you are always a parent. So call your kids, don't make them call you. Schedule times to take them to dinner if it works for their schedule. Don't impose it, just ask. And then you pay for the meal. I've had so many clients who have said to me, my gosh, it feels like my parents just don't want to care for me anymore. It's amazing if you pick up the bill for the meal, just like how grateful they'll be. Offer to watch your grandbabies. Create experiences as grandparents and parents for your kids that make them feel like you were thinking about them and caring for them. It was amazing to me, especially during COVID and times like that, where I would hear from different friends that their parents weren't reaching out. And I'm sitting here going, oh my goodness, there's so many places to start to show up, even if you can't physically be there. You can write letters and notes to your grandkids. You can send them gifts through Amazon. There's all kinds of ways to show up to say, I am tuned to you, right? And attuned to you is I can kind of tell if I'm being overbearing or not. And I'm listening for what you need, not what I need, but what you need. And then I'm going to do something out of that, right? The second thing to do to move into a healthy space with your adult kid is to ask what it was like for them to be your kid. It's a very vulnerable question, because you don't know what the answer is going to be. But here's the thing, just listen, ask the question, just hear what it was like for them. And you know what? There's no perfect parent. So there will be some places of hurt and pain, and that's okay. That's normal. That is so normal. But listen, don't justify, don't dismiss. Don't say, well, here's what happened to me, so this is why I did it. There have been so many times too where I've had clients go and try to share their hurt with their adult parents, and their adult parents then flip it onto their own hurt, right? Out of shame, they can't sit with the difficulty of the pain of their child. They can't look inward. We don't want to do that. We want to listen. We don't want to justify. We're not dismissing. We're not flipping it back to ourselves. We're not defending, right? We're just listening and we're showing empathy. And then here's the big thing. Then we move into ownership and we apologize for our part. Again, whether we meant to or not, whether we meant to hurt or not, we still own and apologize because we're putting ourselves in their shoes, right? This is a part of empathy. We're imagining who they are and what would that have been like for them. And then we ask them, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that hurt you so much. I didn't realize me working such long hours made you feel neglected. I did not know that. I am so sorry, right? And hopefully part of you will also do your work to say, what was that about you that made you always go into work longer than you needed to, right? And then we can circle back and say, here's what I'm discovering about my story. I am so sorry. Can you tell me what that was like for you to have me come home late all the time? What happened inside of you? So you can start to see when we ask about the impact that our actions had on the person that we care about, we're now creating this safe space where we can hold their pain and care for it because that's really what it needed anyways. And that's always what pain needs, is to be seen and cared for, especially by the person that caused the pain. And we have the opportunity to do that as parents, to constantly move in and repair. Now, the third thing that I want for you guys to look at in ways to show up as healthy parents is to do the work. Go get counseling. See how your parents influence your way of showing up. Learn about your own defenses. Make your own relationships with your spouse, with your friends, and with God solid and secure attachments for you so you can know what it feels like to experience secure attachment. And again, don't look to your kids to fulfill something unfulfilled in you. You've got to engage in your story and you've got to know why you showed up the way you did and why you still show up the way you did, and find those wounds in you. Start to find the places of healing. And that's what God calls us to do. He doesn't just leave us in suffering, He meets us in suffering. And we're not supposed to sit and just really push aside any places of wounds or pain in us, because if we do that, then we're not able to fully be alive and fully feel all of our feelings. We'll just stay right here. And for people who are more rigid, who are like, this is the way I show up, you know what that usually says to me? That says that you are pushing down and stuffing down all of your pain. And when you push down and stuff down all of your pain, you also don't get access to joy. You also don't get access to these places of feeling fully alive, right? And so if we don't have that in us, accessed, we cannot access it in others. We cannot emotionally connect to others. So do the work. I can't emphasize that enough. And it's not because I'm a counselor. Well, probably a little bit is because I'm a counselor, but because I want it for you. I want that freedom for you. Now, number 4, do not get in the middle of your kids' relationships. So don't triangulate between one family member to the other. Again, so common where I have clients that come in and say, hey, so my mom is calling my sibling about me, but not me. Or, my dad's talking to like the uncle about me, but not me. And this is triangulation. When we're not going direct, when we're starting gossip with other family members, that's triangulation. We don't want to do that. We want to model healthy, clear communication. Pray for those who you have a hard time being with until you can see that person through God's eyes of compassion. Be a safe place for your kiddo to process, but once your kiddo is married, remember that job goes to their spouse. Okay, so number 5, develop a rich life for yourself. I already mentioned this a little bit before, but develop a rich life for yourself. It's not a busy life or an overstimulated life, but a rich life, one where you're pouring into others, doing the work in your own life, looking for the beauty in all that life has to offer, and inviting others into that beauty. If we hold on to resentments, bitterness can grow, and we're not inviting people into beauty, but into misery. Use these years to leave such a legacy with your family that they know that they are fully known and fully loved by you and God. For you who have adult kids, what an amazing season and calling you have. You leave a legacy of love for your kids, one where they know you love them and you love God unconditionally, one that includes repairing any past hurts and owning your own places of pain and wounding that got in the way of parenting. At the Counseling Center at Fellowship, we love to help parents of adult children move closer in a healthy way to their adult children. Now, reach out and ask about our clinicians who do family therapy. We would love to help.